Well, class, we are back to talk about quiz 3 now. Quiz 3 covered the suicide prevention and intervention chapters, and I know that this was a section that a lot of you were very interested in, according to your reaction papers and things like that. It's something that hit home with a lot of students, and it's a hard topic, but it is definitely something that must be addressed when we are talking about crises that can occur in schools. We're going to kind of go through these 10 questions, and we will talk about their answers. And then just keep in mind that when you're addressing this in schools later as teachers or administrators, coaches, etc., that this is a very sensitive topic to a lot of people, and it's also something that most people are afraid to talk about. And so that really leads to kind of this, if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist paradigm for suicides in the schools. And so when it happens, schools are just rocked. They don't know how to deal, and they don't have procedures set in place for individuals who are affected by the suicide. So the chapters are 10, 24, and 27. And so let me get to the right place in my book here. Here's chapter 10, and then we'll go all the way to 24. And on a side note, this is the week that I found out that half of you have had the wrong book for X amount of weeks. And I am sorry for that. I don't know what happened with the bookstore, but I hope that giving you the opportunity to take the quiz twice, if you had already done it by the time that I was alerted to this issue, and then also giving you an extra week to get it completed. And I know that the bookstore is taken care of now, so if you still have the wrong book, I fully recommend going and exchanging that before the midterm. Okay, so question 1 is, according to the World Health Organization, or the WHO organization, suicide is the blank leading cause of death among people ages 10 to 24 years. I was looking for a specific number, so I'm sorry to the person who said top 5, but that is not what I was looking for. I accepted either second or third, because on the beginning of chapter 10, which was written by David Miller, it said that it was the second leading cause of death. However, when we went to, I think it's chapter 27, it definitely said, which was written by Shelley Hart, it definitely said that it was the third leading cause of suicide. And so I accepted either answer, and I will accept either answer on the midterm as well. Question 2 says that more students attempt suicide than those who complete it. And we're going to go to chapter 10 with the preventing student suicide, and that's where this answer is, but it logically makes sense. The answer is true. It makes sense that more students who would attempt suicide than those who actually complete it, because we have those who have attempted suicide who did not complete it, and so those numbers would increase. So that was just kind of almost a give me where it logically made sense. Question 3. This is really important because this is one of those myths that people think happens. And so question 3 says, talking about suicide increases the risk that students will engage in suicidal behaviors. The answer is false. And here it is. It's here in chapter 10 on pages 209. On page 209. And it's in that myths and misconceptions about youth suicide. And it's right here in that first chapter, and it's that first paragraph, and it says one of the most dangerous myths about suicide is one that was mentioned previously, namely that asking questions or talking to youth about suicide may inadvertently and unintentionally increase the probability that students will occur. That is not true. There is no evidence to support this belief. In fact, students who are able to openly discuss topics of suicide with adults who are trusted and able to help in that area typically have more beneficial outcomes because they have more resources available to them. So if you work in a school where your administrators or your teachers say, oh, we can't talk about suicide because if we talk about it, then it'll put it in the students' heads and they'll do it. And that's not true. There is no evidence to support that. Question 4 says, school-based suicide prevention programs that are not likely to be effective include all of the following except. This question was difficult for a lot of people. I think that you were looking for something that was not effective, but the way that this question is worded is that you were looking for the only option of a prevention program that is effective. And so that's going to be on page, I lost it. Here we go, on page 215. And so the first answer is one-time programs like an assembly on suicide awareness. And while those can be helpful and increase morale and make some changes for a day or two, those are not likely to be a substantial time-sensitive change. So we're looking for something that's going to be long-term, and those one-time programs are not very likely to induce long-term changes. The second one is developing local expertise among the people who work in the school. This was the correct answer because this is the option that is most likely to be effective. What we want to do when we're training on suicide prevention and awareness is we want our local teachers and our local administrators to be knowledgeable in what can be done and the signs to look for. And we want those people that are working in the schools to be that way. The third option, which is not effective, is oversimplifying the complexity of youth suicidal behavior. One, youth know, especially in middle school and high school, they know that it is more serious and more complex than just, so-and-so felt sad. So we can't oversimplify it. It's a complex behavior, and we want to treat it like that. And then finally, another ineffective program is outsourcing the prevention program to a nearby university or mental health counselor. This is not likely to be effective because you're not having people in the schools, so they are not seeing the students on a day-to-day basis, identifying potential areas, potential students who may need more support. And you're not making any school-wide changes or opening that ability to talk with trusted adults. Question 5 says, boys report much higher rates of suicidal ideation than girls and attempt suicide at a rate 2 or 3 times that of girls. But girls actually die by suicide at higher rates than boys. This is false. Switch boys and girls, and then you have a true statement. So the true statement is that girls report much higher rates of suicidal ideation, and they attempt suicide rates at 2 to 3 times that of boys. But boys actually die by suicide then at a higher rate. What we're looking at here is means. Boys tend to choose more lethal means. So they choose guns and other, firearms more likely or more often, whereas girls tend to try to overdose more frequently, and you're less likely to have a suicide completion with overdosing. Let's see. I guess I should be doing some chapter things here and some where things are at. That part is located in chapter 10 on page 208, where we're talking about the demographics and information about youth suicide. Question 6. We're moving along pretty quick this time. Okay, and this one is going to be located on page 210, where we're talking about the youth suicide: when, where, how, and why. And so this question was also missed a lot, and I'm not sure if you didn't understand the question. This one, all of these are true, so you're looking for the one that's not true. And so suicides appear to occur most often on Mondays. That is true. It says in terms of day of the week and times of the day, suicide appear to occur most often on Mondays and least often on weekends. Suicides occur more frequently in the afternoons or evenings. This is also true. Tend to not necessarily occur in the morning and during the day, because most suicides don't occur at school, which is one of the later options. Suicides are most likely to take place at home. This is also true. They're not very likely to take place at school. It's something very low rate to have someone bring the means to school and then commit suicide at school. And so the correct answer here, the one that is false, is that suicides increase in the month of December because of the holiday season. This makes sense to a lot of people because the holidays may be sad, but there are actually fewer suicides in December than in any other month. And so this could be because there's increased social interaction and support, familial support available during holidays due to the gatherings and all of the events that people do during Christmas and other celebrations. However, we are looking at late spring being the peak season, so after all the holidays, schools kind of winding down, but I'm sure we can all remember that, and even right now, late spring, so April, May, these are times that are very stressful in schools, and so it's likely that is when suicides are most likely to occur as far as times of the year. Question 7. I had a lot of interesting answers on this one. Some students thought that the things in parentheses were options, but instead I was really trying to be helpful and give you examples of what the blank was and what I was looking for. So some students may be more at risk for imitative behaviors. There are 2 risk factors to assess when you are looking for students that may try to copy a student suicide, and they are proximity, and you're looking at physical, emotional, and temporal proximity, and those are students who, physical would be students who have witnessed the suicide or were in the same geographic space. The emotional proximity includes individuals who are really close with the student who committed suicide. So you should really assess, if a girl commits suicide, you should really look at her boyfriend and her close friends for that emotional proximity, because they may be more likely to imitate that suicidal behavior. And then temporal refers to other traumatic events. So students who have experienced suicide before, whether with a different close friend or a family member, or if they have other mental health issues, that can also increase their risk factor. And then the other piece that we are looking at is personal vulnerabilities, and those vulnerabilities can be internal or external. So we're looking for the internal vulnerabilities of mental health problems and things like that, and then external personal vulnerabilities. So we're looking at like developmental level and developmental delays and ability to understand. Question 8. The process by which one completed death by suicide may contribute to another is called contagion, and it is on page 527. It's a major heading, and it's one of our vocabulary words in italics, and the definition's right there. Question 9. Details about a student's death, including the means of suicide and if there was a note, should be provided to all students and parents to allow students to share their feelings freely. This is false. Schools do not have the right to share sensitive information like the means of suicide and if there was a note. It breaches parental rights and confidentiality, and it also can lead to contagion effects because if you know how someone committed suicide and you know what their note said, or if there was a note, then you have the beginnings of your own personal plan. And so it is very important to not provide that information. Details that should be provided include, resources available for other students where they can go. And then if the parents allow, you can post information about the services and things like that. And then finally, question 10. This one was a little tricky, I think, but creating permanent memorials on school grounds, so putting benches, trees, things like that, in memory of a student should be done for students who are accidentally killed, but not for students who commit suicide. This is false because all student deaths should be treated the same. We do not want to glorify student suicide in any way, and so we do not want those permanent memorials for suicide. So if that is our policy, then we should not allow permanent memorials for any student death. And that is right here on page 545. When we're looking at table 27.7, it's right there on the don't side. Don't create permanent memorials. You can encourage creativity in honoring the deceased, like making donations to a family or community organization, advocating for school-based suicide prevention activities, things like that. But we do not want to create permanent memorials. And then also in the chapter, it says that all students' deaths should be treated the same. And so that is why we wouldn't do it for students who were accidentally killed as well. Overall, this quiz was much better than some of our previous quizzes. Grades ranged from 40% to 90%, but the grade that was most often achieved was a 90. So most people did very well on this quiz. There were a couple of tricky questions, but hopefully this kind of illuminated some of those. And once again, if you have any questions, let me know and I'll be sure to answer. Okay, thanks.